Thanks for joining us for another For Investors by Investors Long Beach podcast. As always, we're proud to be your all-education real estate resource without any kind of sales pitch. If you'd like to attend one of our meetings in person, we meet on the last Thursday of the month at the Grand in Long Beach, California. You can RSVP on forinvestorsbyinvestors.com/Long Beach. To find more investment resources such as blogs and podcasts and content from other FIBI groups, you can go to forinvestorsbyinvestors.com and search our entire library. Now, on to the podcast.
So this month is how to run your business so your business does not run you, okay, which I wish I would have known 10 years ago, but I don't think any business owner goes into it thinking that way as well. So,
you still need to know that.
Say it again?
You still need to know that.
Yes, I still need to know that. That's absolutely true. I feel like if I get one part of my business systematized, I just have to do something else to create more income or a new strategy and learn that all over again.
That's
you know?
exactly what
so, well, right, exactly. So, that being said, like I said, this is a no sales pitch club, but we do have sponsors. And the sponsors that I bring in are people that I've done business with, mostly to run this group, because we don't make any money at these clubs. The $25 at the door really just helps us throw these events. We break even every single month. And so a couple of the sponsors, we have UDirect. If you want to stand up just for a second and just mention what UDirect is, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. I'm Jeff Dixon. What UDirect is a self-directed IRA company. What that basically means is we allow people to invest their IRAs into alternative assets that are outside of the stock market. So you can hold things like real estate or make loans, buy notes. You can hold almost anything you want. You just have to have a company that allows you to do it. And I'd be happy to talk to you if you're interested. Thank you.
I actually refer a lot of clients to UDirect that help with the self-directed IRA space, primarily because their fee structures are absolutely great, along with their administrative structures, which a lot of the other companies don't have that. Some of them charge you based on your asset value. Some of them charge you based on number of assets, and sometimes those fees can get just run away from you versus a small flat fee structure that I think works really, really well. That being said, another one of our sponsors here is actually my real estate attorney, Bill Hart. Love for you to stand up and talk about your firm just really quick.
Thanks, Matt. Bill Hart King. Our office is down by the John Wayne Airport. We've been a real estate and commercial law firm for the past 35 years, 16 lawyers, and we've been helping Matt over the past number of months on a number of things, and have gotten to know his various businesses more intimately, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. My first meeting, and it's intriguing. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. And I gave him a giant list of legal questions and issues that I'm like, I need to solve all these issues, all these things, and I didn't realize how much work it was really going to be, and I'm taking one step at a time because I got to get my head wrapped around this, and it's been eye-opening to say the least. And if you guys don't have a good real estate attorney for your deals, I would suggest doing that. If you're raising capital, if you're doing any kind of major real estate investing, you have to have a good team members on that side. It's imperative. Same thing with CPAs, same thing with private lenders. We have Dave in the back. He's a private lender, great source to actually go to from cheap money in California. It's California only, so if you invest out of state, he won't be able to help you. But these resources that I bring to the table on these are really important in my eyes to solidify your team when you're investing. Is anybody from Trillion here by any chance? So one of our other sponsors is Trillion Capital. They're a hard money lender as well, and they sponsor the club. Great source of funding for when you need it fast. They can fund in a couple weeks. Is Moore here by any chance? I know we had somebody from Moore Financial here. So Moore is a corporate sponsor, also a hard money lender as well. I think that he took off. So wanted to come for the networking, which is very, very important. So that being said, a couple of the other sponsors, we have LQ Financial Bookkeeping Service. We have actually one of the people that helped me run this group is Kyle and Tiffany Humfeld, and they did a financial calculator app that was absolutely amazing. It's called the 10BII Financial Calculator. I use it every single day. We were just talking about it earlier, structuring different payments of cash flow streams when you're doing note investing or different types of, strategies. it can be absolutely wonderful to utilize. So that being said, that's it for the sponsorships. Next month in Manhattan Beach, we have the topic is going to be did I miss my flipping window? So it's all going to be about flipping properties. We do things on different topics each month. The next month here is going to be investing in out-of-state real estate, which we're going to talk about how to analyze markets, how to set up your team correctly. And I just did a webinar recently on that as well, which you guys can get the link for as well. It's all recorded. But structuring your strategies depending on the market you want to invest in and understanding what team members you need and which ones will make or break you, I think is the most important aspect about investing in out of state. You can go to any market in the world, but if you don't have the right team, you're dead in the water before you start. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the topic. I'd first like to introduce you guys to O'Leary Logan. He's actually my business coach, worked with him substantially in the past and still bring him problems that exist with my business and need to pick his brain sometimes. And sometimes you need that cloudiness. You need some clarity to that cloudiness when you're trying to figure out a strategy or a tool. And you realize, hey, the problems in your life or the problems with your business aren't really problems. They're just emotional problems. You need to make a decision that you haven't made in the past. And I feel O'Leary has helped me substantially with that aspect of things. So O'Leary, could you give a little bit of overview about kind of your experience and what you do on the coaching side?
Oh, sure. Can you hear me back there without the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So I'll just
I'll
leave the mic here. And I know this thing that looks like a laser in front of me, I'm going to turn this off?
Yeah, I'll turn it off.
Okay. Is recording. So I think Matt will make that available. So it's great to be here again. It's always good news when people invite you again, because it's like, that's good news. They want to hear from you again. And even some of the questions here that Matt sent for me, if I could share, I go, these look very familiar, Matt. And so, we're concentrated business coaching for the past, for about 6 months last year. And so these are some of the high-level questions we had. So I guess Matt's going to try to shoehorn 6 months into 2 hours, which is a good thing. And by the way, I'm an O'Leary Logan, and I was talking to a gentleman at Trader Joe's the other day with an unpronounceable Taiwanese name, and we got to laughing because it says, you don't get a choice when you're born, and you don't get a choice for your name. So I got 2 last names, and they're actually reversed. Logan's typically first name. And so I'm a business coach. I'm an executive coach. I work with leadership. That's my expertise. I train leaderships. And guess what? Every one of you lead your company. And at least you lead your own life. So you are a leader. And I'm honored to be here because the other million people in the city are somewhere watching reruns of The Simpsons or something else. And you are here investing the most valuable asset you have. Your time. You never get time again. You can always get money back again. I've been dead broke twice in my life, but you never get the time back. So you're investing your time to actually live into the greatness you can be. So I want to honor that, and we have a bunch of questions going over today to actually glue some ideas for you to use tomorrow, next year, and for the rest of your life. Think about, to make it more participative, think about a specific outcome you want for tonight. Even if, you're like me, you know a lot of stuff, but think about, what is your outcome for tonight? What is it in your business that, gosh, if I knew something that would help me along that, what is that? So I'm going to continue to invite you to participate, because that's how you learn, by participation, getting on the field with your ball and scoring points, to use a metaphor. Taking out a piece of paper, writing down things as you're thinking about it. And we say in my business, writing makes it real. You can think about it, but when you write it, okay, that's a contract, my signature. Writing makes it real. And so that, we're going to have some questions here. If you have questions about your business, raise your hand. And if you feel comfortable, we can interact. I'm not going to ask questions. I don't know how Christine does her coaching, but that's how I do mine.
We went over this in multiple detail, how I need to write down everything, all the ideas that I'm thinking about, because everybody has like 4 billion ideas a day of what to do and comes up with some genius idea that they think is great. And it's so difficult to put it, you know, to remember them over and over again. So, you know, I started to use a voice recorder. I tried that, trying to just use notes, and I started emailing myself and then using that as a task list. There's a million ways of writing this stuff down, but it's a matter of the more you sit down and think and write it down and just brainstorm yourself on strategy, the better your business is going to become. So one of the things that he has taught me substantially is the more I work on my business instead of in my business, and I'm taking his words probably exactly, but is the more successful my business will be. And so it's taking your step back and looking at yourself as a whole and saying, look, get away from your whole business for a day and just take a step back and focus and say, how can I make my business better? That's one of the best strategies you can use. Christina actually helped me substantially with a couple of consultations that we had where we went over all of my assets. So I flip 5 houses a month. I have a huge rental portfolio. I do multifamilies. We've flipped over 500 houses now. We do syndications. We work with hundreds of investors. It's very, very complex and complicated when we're dealing with how many investors and different investors on different deals and money coming in and money going out when new properties we buy and new properties we sell and structuring and all that stuff. And so Christina took a look at all of my assets that I have on one giant Excel sheet because I'm a CPA and I love Excel. You know, it's the best thing on the planet. And said, "Oh my God, how are you still living right now with all these different things going on?" And so I had her help me kind of put it in a more strategic, organized way to be able to help me really kind of get my head wrapped around all the activity. Because with all that activity, you can kind of get to a place where you feel like, I'm overwhelmed, let me stop, I don't want to do anything anymore because it's too much. And it's too much thinking, and it's just too much going on. And so she helped me put it in a way where I could structure it and piece it together in my mind so I'd be much more efficient on my investing and my tracking on all this stuff. So Christina, I'd love for you to just talk about what you do for clients and what your experience is on the real estate side.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually started as a small business consultant first. So when I did my consulting practice, I started in 2000. I was running a small business. I had about 90 teachers that were teaching out of a space that I was running. I rented the space and I co-rented it out to them. Of course, it was in real estate, right? One of those teachers walked up to me and said, you know, Christina, you're so good at organizing this business and the way that it works. Would you come and work for me? And I said, no, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. How many of us are entrepreneurs at heart? We really like working for ourselves. Yes, I am one of those too. I am an entrepreneur at heart. I don't actually want to work for somebody else's company, but maybe I can help you. Maybe I can consult with you. And so I started consulting with her, and she's still a client. She needs a lot of help keeping organized, and so we still work together. But there are a lot of clients who've worked with me for a lot of years. Then later, in 2007, so those of you who is here because you're in real estate? I'm trying to get a sense for. So we do really have a mixed and weighted crowd. Okay, cool. In 2007, after the 2006 hype and 2007 slide and on into 2009, I actually started my real estate consulting because I was already consulting and I had been investing in real estate. Well, at that time, I have to work backwards. Let's put it this way. I've been investing in real estate for about 30 years now. So I've been at it for a while. And so I added that to my practice. And it kind of boils down to, if you have the heart of an entrepreneur and you're interested in having freedom and control over your time and your choices, there are two amazing vehicles you can use to create that kind of life for yourself. Business, and owning your own business, and real estate, and running your investments. So the two are actually not very far away when you start with the assumption that you have the heart of an entrepreneur. That you want to have freedom in your world and have control over creating that freedom. So how many of that sounds like you? That's why you do what you do. Okay, so I'm guessing that's why you gave up your valuable time and showed up here tonight. Like O'Leary said, you're not sitting on the sofa watching TV right now.
Reruns of Simpsons.
Right? Reruns of Simpsons. You're here to invest in your future. You're here to invest in how to cultivate yourself as a leader.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So that we can add the most value to you guys in the room, I'd just like to take hands. Who is just starting out in their business, say a year or less, and just starting to get going, okay? And who here has been doing their business for over 5 years? Okay, 10? You've made it past the 95%
That's right.
mark if you've done it over 10 years. So I was
you.
clapping for you,
We were
man,
clapping
because
for you, Carl.
to be honest with you, the first 10 years, what do you have, like a 90%
97%.
97, say, I was being optimistic.
Three out of 5 in the first 3 years.
Right, okay, so,
Close.
and that doesn't, so, and I don't look at failure as, or I don't look at, you know,
It's okay.
the business failure as an
all right.
actual failure. So, like, I failed so many times, but it really comes down to looking at it as temporary defeat. You have to get up and pick yourself up and drop and dust yourself off. Like I mentioned many times to a lot of you guys in the room, I quit my CPA firm job in 2006. So like I said, I was a real estate genius for about a year, and then I was an idiot. Very quickly, an idiot. And then realizing, wow, there's real estate market cycles. I need to make sure that, you know, I pay attention to that going forward. So right now I'm scared to death because I see the stock market going crazy, and I'm like, this is not real. Watch out, watch out. And I got you know, the red lights going right now. And so what that means to me by watching out is not, you know, put my tail between my legs and run away. It's make sure I have proper cash reserves, make sure I'm doing things a little bit more safely, make sure I don't have really long-term flips going right now in high volatile areas, make sure that, you know, anything I do right now, I have a backup plan and a strategy to put in place, you know, for these types of things. So those are the things that you watch out for, and you gear up for when it does crash, when there's a major issue that comes up, you gear up now so that way you can take advantage and become extremely wealthy when the next cycle turns, because it's all cyclical. It will go up and come down and go up and come down, and you can't do anything about those cycles except for pay attention and put yourself in the right strategic place to do so. So, and so I think all of us as business owners run through these things, whether it's real estate or some other business that you're doing. And I think it's important to understand where you're at and what risks there are in your specific industry that you're doing business in, and strategically put yourself in the right position. So that being said, you know, I'm going to have O'Leary and Christina specifically talk about some of the things they see that business owners struggle with, you know, as a whole. So, you know, O'Leary, I'd love for you to...
Before you answer, can
Yes.
I just add to what you said?
Yes, please, absolutely.
So I just want to add, because tonight may be a little bit different, because, you know, I imagine you could say go to next FIBI, it's going to be learn the flips, right? And you learn all the technical machinery and what you need to do for that. This is more like I would imagine a, you know, helicopter level view of how you do and how you're being in your business. And, you know, the idea that in 97% of businesses are out of business in 10 years, not just little businesses. Companies like Lucent, billion-dollar companies. How many people remember Nokia? They had 97%, yeah. You probably had a Nokia phone. Yeah, 90%. So
Who didn't have a Nokia phone?
I had a Nokia phone.
yeah, and so the idea is that there's in business there's a natural competition that just wants to take you out, and it requires a rigor, determination, and vigilance in business to continue on through the different seasons in the economy and the different seasons in your life and your leadership and your business. And, you know, Matt said about failure. One of the powerful things I use in coaching, leading people is shifting your language. So failure, just cross that out and just say feedback. It's all just feedback. Because what we fail at now, 100 years from now, people are going to laugh. Well, they really were concerned about that, you know? If you look at it just all feedback, then you get to go through it. And so tonight we'll just like talk about that high level, how you're going to build your business muscle, because you already have technical muscles. Each one of you have probably forgotten more about real estate than I know, because that's not my expertise. You have expertise, but the idea is like, what takes people out is they don't know the other 80% of what they need to know in business, especially when you start getting teams up.
Speak it,
Yeah.
speak it, preach it, go for it, go for it.
Especially when you start and get teams up, and humans
Yeah.
are very predictable, except when they make exceptions to being predictable. As an attorney, you should know that. But the idea is that like you start working with people, and that requires a whole different level of skill. You start like asking big requests, asking the big ask for investors requires a little bit different than when you had less zeros in your request. So,
And I think, I read a book called The E-Myth that Rick in the back bought for me, which took me a freaking year to read, of course, because every chapter I'm like trying to take notes and realize what I'm doing wrong.
Good.
And in that
Past
book,
first 100 pages.
it talks, and it actually reiterated a lot of what O'Leary had taught me in the past, which was talking about how every person, every one of us, when we go into business for ourselves, we have this technical mindset that we're like, when I quit my CPA firm job, I'm like, well, I can always go do, taxes and audit full-time if I wanted to, and I could do that, and that would be no problem. Not knowing anything about marketing, being a manager, being an entrepreneur, learning the other hats that you have to have in order to do this, which is a totally different skill set. Completely different skill set than your current technical ability that nobody as an entrepreneur has really been taught from the jump. And so, you have a ton of people that come in, they're just like, okay, let me jump ship and I'm gonna go be an entrepreneur doing this because this is what I'm good at. But they don't realize what the partners of their firm or the owners of those firms had to go through initially to learn the marketing side, learn the administrative side, learn the sales side, learn, every piece of that business, including the new ideas, keeping up with technology. There's so many different facets of it that it's a constantly learning thing. But I can tell you, once you jump ship and do this, if you haven't already, it's the most rewarding thing you can ever do. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the hardest things. There's been some crying, okay? There's been some crying in the past. But you learn really, really hard, the hard way. But that's when you gain that experience and realize, hey, when that market crashed right after I quit my CPA firm job, that's when I got the most entrepreneur muscle that I've ever gotten in my life. That's when you learn the most that you've ever learned, and you become very strong and you realize, this wasn't so bad. Yeah, it was all a paper loss and a mental loss. It wasn't anything physical that actually happened, So, yeah.
Can I put some structure around this?
Please.
Just because my brain works this way. So I feel like we're talking about two different topics.
Yes.
They're both important topics. One is we're talking about the capacity to face your own losses, your capacity to what some people call fail forward faster. Like rather than considering it a failure, calling it feedback, and developing the muscle to be able to choose back into leadership in the face of going, I just effed up. Like, can you own it? Like, I just made a mistake, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to fail forward faster. And that developing what I call an inner mettle to be able to face what's right there in front of you, a company you've developed, and to not walk away from it. And it's the same in investing. I've lost, who's lost $10,000 in investing? Okay, who's lost one more zero? Okay, who's lost one more zero? Okay? Yeah. So fail forward faster, right? I could have stopped. Did I stop? No, I didn't stop. Did I think about it? Was I crying? Yes, I was having some serious moments here, right? But fail forward faster. So can you develop that inner mettle? So that's one. That's leadership. Faith in yourself, and the willingness to reinvest in your own business and your own vision of your business. You started your business for a reason. You didn't start it because, oh, gee, I'm bored of, sitting on my sofa. You started because you had a reason that lit you up from the inside out, and you said, I'm going to do this. And so recommitting to that vision, even when the zeros start mounting up. So that's one. Then we talk about, well, what's the structure of a growing business? So the structure of a growing business is I call it I have 3 levels, 9 elements, okay? First is, you've got a product, you're selling something, whether it's your services, your brain, the thoughts in your brain, a physical, I'm gonna build a house, whatever your product is, I don't care. You got a product, you've got a customer who's gonna buy that product. Well, we hope they buy it, right? Because that's generally where we make our money. And then you have some kind of system that lets you deliver that product. So whether you know it or not, you have 3 elements in your business, just like day one. What then seems to come secondary is finances, with basic bookkeeping, marketing, and developing a team. Because if you think about it, usually it's just you. You kind of start with me, or me and my wife, or me and my husband. So that's your team, and you guys talk, at least for me, when I had a business partner that was my partner in life, we were talking at 9 o'clock at night. We were holding board meetings. 9 o'clock at night, as we're sitting there, getting ready for bed, right? That's your board meeting. But then over time, you develop, if you're successful, you start to develop a team. But now you're responsible not for the industry you started in. Like, I had a client who loved dogs. She made a dog kennel, right? So now you're not talking about how to take care of dogs anymore. Now you're talking about, how do I market my business? How do I track the money in my business? And how do I talk to my team in a way that works? Is that the skill set that has anything to do with dogs? It's a very different skill set. So what you were rewarded in originally becomes the thing you're not doing anymore as your business grows. Does that give some structure?
Does it? You wanted structure?
I want a structure.
I know it's like she's dying over here for structure.
I am
You're
dying.
very
I
strict.
feel like that's right on the money when it comes to how to run your business and be the business owner instead of being the self-employed. And I think everybody struggles with that. And so, looking at it from that perspective, how do you learn how to market? And how do you learn how to do accounting or know enough about it to hire someone else to do those items? And how do you structure your business to where you are being the one that is doing what you're building your business to do what you want to be doing in the business. If you don't want to be the CEO of the business, you can hire that out once you start making enough money. But initially, you got to be the CEO of the business. You have to learn all the different hats so that you can actually put them in the right place, at least from my experience. He's going to tell me I'm wrong. I already know it. But I'm thinking about things that he's like, what did he teach me last time? How many times have I been wrong? So, and it's funny, when I said failure, I knew he was going to call me out on it right away, saying, no, it's temporary defeat, So, but that's one thing I love about the business coaching is every time I say something stupid or something that really isn't true, he's like, well, is that actually true? You're not being true to yourself, And so, talking about these types of things, well, Larry, can you talk about, some examples of different, problems that I guess certain business owners have when they're trying to be the entrepreneur and trying to be the business owner versus, being the self-employed? How do you help them get out of that, self-employed mentality, I guess you would say, because it just comes down to a mentality, right? So, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so let me wrap some structure around that.
You're so sweet.
And what I find that people are normally really great at one thing, and they need to build up the other things. Sort of like if you've ever gone, how many ever go to the gym or do core exercises or yoga, something like that? Yeah, and you realize there's like one move that's, oh my God, how am I going to do that? But you're really strong at something else. Well, you want to build that up, and maybe you'll never be as strong as possible in that particular move, that particular thing. I was trained scholastically as engineer, down to the decimal places, 5 decimal places and everything. I really don't like administration. So guess what? I delegate that out. You delegate your weaknesses. And my strength is actually talking to people, enrolling people, inviting people to go beyond their limiting conversation. Let me put some structure around this, that what you need to work on in your business as a leader, and I wrote a little triangle here, and so I'm going to talk about this. Imagine you have a triangle, and that it comes down to mindset, planning, strategic planning, and execution. When all those three are aligned, then you have good movement. Now, if you have a problem, you're stuck somewhere, or like you fear making the big call, or you don't know how to do it, this is where you need help in. Either like if you have a mastermind group, or you have a accountability buddy, or if you have a coach, or talk to Matt. So it's like, wow, what is holding me back? And so look at your mindset. When I'm talking to people with a business owner, it's like your mindset. So one mindset in business, owning your own business, is to take on, sort of like put on that coat, take on the ownership of the business, just speaking it out and declaring it. They call it elocution language for all you people who are interested in that. Just claiming it for yourself. I'm a business owner. I'm the CEO. A lot of people is like, well, again, I don't know if I want to be a leader. You are the leader of your company. Just declaring it out. And you'll be amazed, because it actually, from a physiological standpoint, it goes from thinking about it to it actually activates a different part of your brain. Actually, the part of the brain that goes down to your feet that makes you move. So actually claiming that. So just claim yourself a business. You doubt yourself you're a good negotiator, you're not good with money, just, I'm going to be a master negotiator. And just claim it and own it. And guess what? You will make every mistake there is to make on your way to being there. Second, have a plan. So if you don't have a plan, you're just, you're out there in the haze. You're walking down Disneyland's Main Street, USA. Well, I don't have a plan. I'm just here enjoying the company. So have a plan. And one way to have a plan is to have a vision. Now, how many people have a vision for your company? A vision and a mission statement? Are you just not raising your hand because you don't have one, or just... Okay, so let me ask you something else. How many people here, do you have a vision for this season of your life? Good. How many here are married or have a significant other? Do you have a vision for that relationship? Awesome, good. Well, see, that's why you're not watching reruns of The Simpsons. So having a vision, and a vision is two parts. It's like where you're going to go, arrive to, or a ever always way of interacting with people. So you have a specific outcome. I like outcomes versus goals, because outcomes is like, I'm going to get there. Versus goals is, that'd be sort of a nice stretch goal, like that. Just an outcome, I'm going to get there, and you're going to do what it takes to get there. So you have an outcome for a vision. And the other one that is often missed is the attitude of the mind, or the way that you're being with your customers. And since I mentioned Disneyland, I'll talk about that for a second. So what is their vision? Why don't you complete this second? To be the happiest place on earth, right? That's their vision. Very simple. Everybody from the CEO down to the person who sweeps the popcorn on the main street can remember that. But how do you execute that vision? What is the attitude of the mind and the heart to actually execute that on a daily basis? Their mission statement is make people smile. And so what does it take to make people smile? Every different kind of person, whatever it takes. Sometimes it's a grumpy attitude, sometimes it's a smile, lady gets down on her knees. What is your mission statement? It could be, I'm just making this up out of thin air, because create 5-figure values for my client, or create value for my client. And so you are calibrating your attitude and your heart every minute to that, walking that out. So think about really honing down on your vision and mission statement. And the last is, nothing gets, the last piece of the triangle, nothing gets created but through action. So how many people here, raise your hand if you know you need to make a call with somebody, but you're sort of avoiding it, like, you need to call. I see people smiling. Yeah, it's like, oh gosh, I need to call that. It's like, everybody, if you're a human, that's you, right? So action would be, you need to make that, so you commit to it, you get clear on the vision and the mission for that particular action. Creating value for people is a good one, right? You want to be around people who create value for you, right? And then, you don't have to do it now, stand up. You could if you want, but stand up. Take out that old kind of phone that got rid of Nokia and dial it in and make that call.
It's a lot less painful than you really think
Yeah, it is. It's like, oh my God, it's like, I have the honor, I actually have some clients that are attorneys, and I had this one attorney, he was a great attorney, but he was very amiable on the disc chart, so he didn't want to upset anything. And I said, your problem is taking action. It's like, man, you got the mindset, you got the plan, but you don't want to take action, and it was around negotiation and making the big requests. So his special high-level executive homework was to go to his favorite coffee shops and ask for a free cup of coffee. You know how hard that is for amiable people?
That's really hard.
Yeah, they might dislike me. If they say no, what would happen? Now, get ready. No just means new opportunity. That's what no is.
Interesting.
So think about those three, where you might be getting stuck in those, or you need to build your muscles in those areas. Mindset, planning and strategy, and then taking action.
And I think that's one thing that O'Leary has helped me a lot with is, there's a ton of those little instances in your business every day that are pain points that you just kind of put off, or you don't do that task because it seems hard, even though it's really important that you get that task done. And then one of the things that I think really helped me was to be able to go through and say, how much time is this really going to take me, and how much pain is this really? It's really not as hard as my mind is making it out to be, because my mind makes it feel way harder to write that detailed email out to somebody that's really, really long, So I mean, and most of the pain point things that you find that you're not doing are the most important things that you should be doing. They're the things that would, he helped me through a relationship problem that I was having with one of the guys that worked with me, where I should have had a really hard conversation way earlier. And I didn't have it. I kept pushing it off, and I'm going, no, it'll work itself out. And I kept pushing it off. And then he's like, look, what's stopping you from having this conversation? Let's talk about what is going through your head to stop you from doing that and moving that forward. And so honestly, just by making me write this down, like, here's why I'm not doing it. And I wrote down, you might get mad at me, or it's going to be a hard conversation. I couldn't really think of anything concrete that was the real reason why I was having a hard time having that conversation. And then you realize you're going, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And it's really not that bad. And so you just realize very quickly that it's your emotions taking over versus something that's, very difficult to do in reality. It's really not that hard to pick up the phone and have a conversation, or write that email out, or do that thing that you really are dreading, even though, you might think in your head, this is going to take hours to get this done, and it really only takes 15 minutes. Or maybe the first step is only 5 minutes or a 2 minutes task to move you forward just one step. Because that's one thing that I always have a hard time with, is I'm looking at this giant picture saying, I need to get way over here, and going, God, that seems like such a hard thing to do, to get way over there, but really just comes down to a series of very small steps to get there that really only take like a minute each to get there. And so as a whole, it seems overwhelming, but if you break it down into smaller categories to get you moving forward in that action step, and write down, like what he's saying, strategically planning out how you're going to get to that point where you want to be, and then taking those small action steps to get there, really helped me a ton, kind of get that clarity going, So, and so I, looking at this from a business owner standpoint, I think every business owner has that kind of issue. At least I hope so. I hope I'm not the only one. But
They're human.
So, yeah, exactly. So, Christina, what are some of the things you've seen business owners struggle with from a day-to-day approach, or do you have any examples of problems you've helped business owners or real estate investors solve?
I would say the one that I see that I feel like is the most common is there's two ways to talk about it. One is the transition point from being the person who's the industry person, like I'm working in this industry, to I'm going to be a business owner. Now, you could call that commitment to leadership. You could call that just acknowledging, oh, by the way, I opened a business, but it's not necessarily my strongest skill set, right? Acknowledging that or understanding that. You could call it just being naive, being willing to grow into that more is required of you. So I feel like when I work with people who are hesitant to be leaders, I, like O'Leary, want to say, well, I hate to break the news to you guys, but if you have a business, you're a leader. Like, you're stuck. I'm sorry. If you thought you weren't, I want to let you know you are. You're running your company.
Go get a job if you don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's like you already chose in on that. And there's a reason why you chose in, right? There's already a part of you that chose into that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in that position. So whatever the hesitation is that has you own it.
Maybe there's a way we can do this for faster. Like, for example, I would imagine being new to real estate investing that there's a certain path or certain model that basically works. I mean, you get your first single family, and then you get a little bit more confidence and get a multi-family home, and you don't just go in and buy a big 500-unit apartment. So, in putting your team together and getting the confidence, finding the money, I mean, what's the basic process if you've taken people through this? Say we've already signed up the idea that we're a business owner. What's the model? What's the path? And how do you get through it without the least bumps and bruises? Or, I mean, I'm willing to take them, but it just seems like there's some logic behind the path since it's been done for many decades now.
Let me, if I may, I'm going to take a couple minutes to answer your question as directly as I can, and then I'll just talk to the larger topic if that's okay. But I want to answer you directly. Is that good?
Yeah, I mean, maybe more are in the same boat than women.
I probably are. So when you talk about moving through a real estate path, usually I find the first question is, are you starting with your own assets or not?
Yeah.
If you're starting with your own assets, then it's usually pretty straightforward on what kind of asset do you want to purchase that's appropriate for your retirement plan, right? Do you want to own direct? Do you want to do hard money lending because you really need passive? Do you want to invest in syndicated deals? Or buy notes? Those are all perfectly valid pathways if you're already starting with assets. The question is really has to do with your time and your effort and your risk tolerance. So you take those three and you put them together and you come up with the right asset class for you to purchase. And as that money grows, does that make sense? If I don't have a lot of time, let's say I've got a full-time job, I'm a doctor, I'm a engineer, I run my own company. I don't have a lot of time, but I have assets that I feel responsible for growing because I want to ensure my own future, right? Then you want to choose passive investments, things where you have maybe an expert that's running it for you. So that might be a fund. It might be funding a flipper that's already running a successful business. That way you're not putting a lot of your own time into it, but you're letting your money work out there.
Yeah, I agree. If you're actually going through and specifically looking for the direction for you, for anybody in the room, you have to first understand, okay, what am I working with as far as assets go? How much am I working with? And will that create financial freedom for me, or will that hit my goal, my 10-year goal? And I said this last time at your meeting. You start with your 10-year goal, work backwards to your 5, and then 3, and then 1 year, and then find the pathway to get there. Now, if you're unsure and need education about real estate specifically, I think first things first is like what Christina's saying is you have to go through and find out, okay, what am I comfortable with? How much time do I have? Do I want to be a fix and flipper? If I do, then I got to know that that's a lot of time.
Well, that's a great piece of advice right there. Start with your 10-year plan and work backwards. I'm familiar with all those pieces. I know all those options are there, but there are some that accelerate your success.
Right, and I'd say the acceleration piece comes down to you consistently getting educated, going and meeting with people that have a lot more experience to you, and having them help you get educated. So you're going through that process and saying, okay, what do I not know about this asset class that's going to bite me in the ass later on? So and what do I need to? How much education do I need to make sure that it's not going to hinder me on my way to my 10-year goal? And then sitting down with them and going over, okay, step by step, what do you start off with? And how long do you wait before you go to your next one? I know a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm going to buy my first single family home and I'm going to hold it for rental income. And I tell them at the very beginning, start with one, then wait 6 months. at least before you could buy your next one, so you know, you start to learn the process involved in the headaches, and that entire time, you're educating yourself over and over and over again. And then you're going through and formulating a plan based on your education, and your plan will change a million times during that process. And I think learning that plan initially, and then constantly talking about the problems that come up on that investment, because there will be problems on that investment with the new people involved, or the more experienced people, is what's going to get you there. And so, and learning these new tools over time to get you there as well, because there's always ways of making a higher return on investment on your dollar, depending on how active or passive you want to be, and you know, trading up into new assets and things like that. It comes down to financial education as well as your real estate education over time, as you take one piece at a time and slowly get there. You know, if you have a couple $1 million to invest right now into real estate, and that can create 100% cash flow for you, then awesome. But don't go put in a couple $1 million immediately. You know, start with one small investment and learn it first, then move up over time. You know, does that make sense?
Absolutely, thanks for that.
Question here.
We were just talking about it, we were talking about up front there. Gentleman said, you know, I'm not gonna mention his name, but we were talking about, you know, he's out here, he can help people, he has experience, and he goes to people with, you know, just starting out, and they're like, hey, I want to learn, and he's like, hey, I'll help you. You know, they give him all this stuff. He's like, read this book, go find a property, or even give him like a steps to do, and then he never hears from him again. So that's one of the
That happens a lot.
Actually doing, like they were saying earlier, actually doing it. Tell yourself to go do it. A lot of people just don't want to do it. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to help, because as flippers, like someone like Matt, who does, you know, as many as he flips he does a year, he can always bring someone else in or do something else. He's making more money, but he's helping you. And he wins in both ways. You know, so really accelerating it is going to find someone with more experience that has done them, give up more of the deal and the money-wise or whatever, however you want to negotiate it, and that's how you do it. Because then you get that experience. You will make mistakes no matter what, even if you go with somebody who has experience. When you go out on your own, you'll make mistakes. But you also now have a person that you can call up and go, hey, this happened. I've never had it. And they say yes or no. So that's how you accelerate.
Yeah,
is actually work with other people.
I would definitely recommend a real estate coach or a business coach to continue to hold you accountable and move you forward on those action steps.
And
Just
help you
because-
come up with the 10-year plan.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the action.
It's the, yeah, it's the where are you going?
Yeah.
How do I get there the fastest way that makes sense?
So many other ways to do it.
Yeah, and that's going to come from someone else that's experienced, that can look at your numbers that you've already put together and say, what am I missing? You know? So I think that's key. You got a question?
Do I go single family, multifamily? Real estate changes every day. What was working 8 years ago is not working now.
Well,
So
those
you
are
have to educate yourself and kind of look forward what's happening. I personally, I don't think as many people are flipping single family homes in Southern California. I know they're not as 4 years ago, because there's just not that many deals.
Right, well, we're buying out of state already, but that syndication class that happened last month was a mind blower
Awesome.
too, because then, oh, that's how they do that, and then.
But if your plan is to stay in California and do single family homes,
No.
you're gonna die.
Right, that's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
I got to follow, what was your name again?
Janae,
Janae, so I could tell that you're a real go-getter. You're my kind of person. You're like, you know, what needs to be done, let's get it done now. So, and I already hear it in here, the fastest way to accelerate what you want to do, and this applies to everybody and it's cross industries, is to go and find out who has already accomplished well where you want to go, and get with them. Get the dust of their dandruff on your shoulder. Be with them and learn what they've done already. Because it's like, why go out and get a book? I mean, books are great, you know, and we'll have to talk about books. But go out and hold my call from my agent, please.
I know, you're a wanted man, I understand. Sorry,
I'm a
he's
wanted
too
man.
busy.
I've been a wanted man for a long time. So actually go out and find out, maybe it's in this room, maybe it's in a different part of the country. Contact someone who has already accomplished and is where you want to be. I mean, they do this with realtors all the time. And so that would be my personal, I mean, you don't know me from a hole in the wall. That'd be my request for you to have success, is today's Thursday, by tomorrow, you would have 3 names that you can talk to. And you can just hover around them and learn, create value for them as you're learning. And so that you can cut the corners and just leapfrog that success.
And if you want help on the out-of-state stuff, just call me and we'll talk about it. I know everything about it, know all the headaches and everything. Be careful about property managers. So, okay, so.
So I'm
Yeah,
going to
please.
finish. So the biggest problem that I see is people working in their business and not working on their business. Like people are like, well, I got into this industry, whether it's real estate or whether it's running a dog kennel. I got into this industry because I know how to work on my business, right? Or I know how to work in my business. What I know to do is my business and my industry. I know how to write a program. I know how to flip a house, right? That's what I know how to do. But I don't step back and go, how do I have a plan to grow my business? How do I make sure that my daily activities are contributing to the plan that grows my business? And how, in real estate in particular, how do I study my industry so I'm not surprised when my industry moves? So the stepping back and working on your business, I can't tell you how many times people are like, you want to meet with me an hour every week? They're like, I don't have that much amount of time. I said, I understand. But if you want to keep spinning, doing your business exactly the size that it is now, then keep working on it exactly the size it is now. If you want to grow your business, then we need to take a step back to develop a plan and then hold you accountable to that plan every week. So that you're taking an hour a week, and trust me, an hour might almost be enough, but probably not really. I'm just trying to be kind. If you take an hour a week to at least step back and look at, is my business meeting its goals? Am I meeting its goals? Where is its strengths? Where is its weaknesses? Because I like numbers. I happen to start on a company's P&L. And I go line by line by line by line, and I go, is this working? Is this moving your business forward? And is this a strength or weakness for you? Because you're accountable for all of it, whether it's a strength or weakness for you or not. And then out of that comes a whole series of questions of, well, then where do you want your business to go? And why is this useful to your business has to do with the plan you have for your business. So the willingness to just, it's sheer will, to push your business away from you an hour or more a week and say, I'm observing my business and working on it, and I'm not going to work in it. That to me is probably the biggest single step. Once you do that, a lot of other things just start to unfold because your willingness to ask the question.
It's funny, I remember specifically telling O'Leary during one of our coaching sessions when he had the same conversation with me, I'm going to do 5 to 10 hours a week on my business. That's what I'm going to do. It did not happen at all, but I tried my hardest to do that. It ended up being about 2 hours a week, which was great. But
in 2 hours, you make a difference.
2 hours was huge. And I can tell you for every single hour that I worked on my business, my business took leaps and bounds forward just from taking that 2 hours a week out and saying, I'm not answering my calls, I'm not doing anything else except for focusing and saying, what are the problems, what are the things that I can solve, how can I move this forward, where do I want to be?
Okay, and let me suggest, on your business is, what's your marketing plan? On your business is, what do my finances look like? What's my P&L this month? And is that successful or not? On your business is, how am I managing my team? And how am I going to organize my team? On your business is, how do I manage my delivery of my product? Not am I delivering my product, it's how am I going to manage it better? On your business is my business fulfilling its mission statement? Do I have one? If I don't, let's create one. Right? Once a year or 6-month review, is my business still on course with my initial vision? Because if it leaves your vision, you're not going to be passionate about it anymore. So you want to keep it with your vision. And on your business is observing your industry, not from your bias, but by gathering a series of data and saying, flipping is closing in LA. What am I going to do with that? Oh, but I'm still making money. I don't care if your business is still making money. Your industry is telling you that flipping is going to close in LA. And you're responsible for all your investors and your crew. So what are you going to do with that? So you have to study your industry. That's on your business versus in your business.
So before you go, I wanted to just ask you, Matt, as an example for other.
Absolutely.
You got 2 hours. Where could have you gone if you put 4 hours into it?
Wouldn't be sitting here, for sure.
It would be center.
Someone else would be in my
Somebody else
seat
would be
running this
running,
meeting.
somebody else would be doing team development, and you'd be running your team instead of doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, okay, I just want to do a quick calibration.
Please.
So how many people are getting value from this conversation? Okay, how many people want it to go faster? I'm just curious. I know you do, because you're like me.
It's awesome.
Oh my God. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm giving you, you're my kind of people. Have you ever done the DISC, personality style DISC? It's called DISC. Have you done it?
I've done Myers-Briggs, haven't I?
Yes.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs okay. It gets into a lot of granular detail. Do the DISC. I mean, you can get over the thing. You'll be surprised at where you are on the DISC. So the biggest question, I imagine, the style that you have is what needs to happen to get it going, as opposed to say the amiable person is why, is everybody okay? And reason why the DISC, I lost you there. Okay, so do the DISC thing. The reason why is because you're very pragmatic. You're like a project manager leader. I mean, that's my assessment, my experience. But the people you're selling to are all around different personality styles. So be aware of who you're talking to when you're closing deals, when you're doing negotiations. So you're shaking your head. Well, tell me what are you thinking?
I've run my own business in another industry
Yeah.
for many years.
Okay.
This is real estate investing, so I'm kind of, taking some assets and moving them into passive investments.
Okay.
Had a nice conversation with Matt, person on the phone, seen the spreadsheets, like what you're doing in Tennessee. Attended a few other meetings here, and so the thing, how to run your business so it doesn't run you. I mean, I thought it was going to be focused more on real estate investing, and maybe I read it wrong, but.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. My request is, if it didn't turn out the way you expected, like you walk in and like, this isn't the movie that I paid for to be in. Have you ever gone to like that?
Oh, that's all cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Maybe you can learn something else, like that. That's,
And I think that's definitely important to understand. Most of the time, this is a real estate investment club, and at the same time, I look at this as a whole as part of running your real estate business is understanding your goals in business and setting those expectations. Like, for example, I already know that my 10-year goal is to be flipping 10 properties a month passively, meaning me not being in the business specifically to do that, as well as having $100,000 a month in passive cash flow coming in from my investments. And so I've set that expectation in my mind and brought it back to that 5-year and 3-year plan and that 1-year plan to actually say, okay, I have to buy this many apartment buildings to get there, or I need to manage this many properties, or I need to be reinvesting this much cash flow on a monthly basis to actually get to that specific goal, and break it down into quarterly rocks or quarterly challenges that you need to get through. And I think one thing, O'Leary, you mentioned to me during our coaching session was documenting that end-to-end revenue generation process. And can you kind of explain that a little bit? Because I think that will help, to gain an understanding of the planning pieces of this to actually get to that cash flow goal you're talking about with related to real estate.
Yeah, I guess as a coach, we can break down that process in this room, is my question.
yeah, so a good exercise is for every business owner is to write your client journey. If you were your own client and you go knocking on a door, brick and mortar, but you go knocking on a door, what would your client experience from hello all the way to yes to a purchase? Whether it's a widget at Barnes & Noble's or whether it's a $100,000 home. And look at your most important revenue generating process. Now you probably, I'm thinking about like other businesses have a lot of different threads through the company. You think about what process generates the most revenue for you. And a good exercise is just do a Ben Franklin, take a blank piece of paper, put a line down the center. On the right side, put what our company sees as the client journey, and then imagine or actually interview someone who's been successful through the process, what they see, and write down the process. So what does the lead generation process look for your client? What is it from your standpoint? Then what does the presentation look like from your client? What does it look like from you? What do you have to do? And you keep going through this process through the different layers of your company. So they want to say yes, and then I hand it off to another person who's going to take them through the process. What does that look like? And actually write it down all the way through it. And from that process, you'll get to see pieces in your company, especially if you have other people in it, where like you didn't know realized, or where it could, you can decrease expenses because you could be more productive, or you could say, you know what, we're totally missing it here. We're not doing follow-up. That's one of the things that people miss a lot is follow-up. Once you get your clients into your database, you keep marketing to them until they buy or die.
Till it's a clear yes or a clear no.
Clear no. It says,
go away.
oh, that's no today, right? Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So the idea is that you want to be aware of how you could optimize. How many people like to optimize, 20% optimize their cash flow, either faster or more? And how many people would like to stop bleeding where you have expenses that are bleeding? Get rid of that. So when you actually write that end-to-end process down through through the marketing, typically it's broken down. Every company is broken down into 4 areas. You got your sales and marketing. You got your, as Christina was talking about, your production or your service. Then you have your, financials, HR in the background and stuff like that. And we call it the sell it, do it, care for it area. And your end-to-end revenue is going to go thread through that process. And then, as we've been talking about, working on your company, above that line is called lead it. Because guess what? Guess who leads your company? Lead it. So it doesn't matter if you're just starting off or your Apple computer with a $600 million, capital. By the way, who has Apple computer stock? Yes. Congratulations. I have it too.
600 billion, not a million,
It's amazing.
in the bank.
In the bank.
No, they have I know there's a little side thing. They have cash, $230 billion cash. And so, yeah, they're totally undervalued. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that's the whole side thing. So guess what? Apple Computer can break down their company into those 4 areas. Sell it, do it, care for it, below the line, above the line, lead it. And so you want to trace your process and all the touch points through your process, technology, who hands it off here, to backing up your data, whatever it might be, all the end-to-end through that process.
And to relate that specifically to real estate, like you were talking about, the same process gets related to every aspect of your real estate. You have sales and marketing and all that stuff for every piece of it. So like if you're doing a buy and hold, for example, then you have to market for tenants or know their managers know how to market for those tenants. You have to understand how are you marketing for properties, for example. How are you marketing for money? How are you marketing for, I guess new relationships and new strategies that you can invest. On the sales side, on a flip, for example, your customer that he's talking about is the person you're buying the property from and the person you're selling it to, and your team in the middle can be considered your customer as well, like your contractors that you have to have a very tight relationship with, that you have to be communicating with very well. So you may want to sit down with each one of those team members in each piece, like someone you just bought a property from, and say, how did that process go for you? And write it down the way you think it is, just like you're saying, but how did they see it? Same thing on the sales side. And I really think the contractors and all your different team members involved, including your realtors, you should be sitting down and saying, what did I do wrong? Or what is the process that you saw in that? And what things, and you're going to find a million ways to be better, and by you interviewing each one of those team members that really are kind of like customers. I look at contractors like customers because you have to set that expectation up front, and you have to be able to know and expect certain things from them and certain pricing, and be able to really, really gauge how they're perceiving you, because certain contractors, they'll fall off, they'll get worse, they'll get better. You know, there's problems with every team member involved. So if you can have that understanding of how they see the world and how they're seeing your system and what value you're bringing to them specifically, that's when you really, really have a good team set up in the real estate system. When you can really go through and say, you know, how great was this for me to buy that property from you? How did that help you? So I can tell you right now that we do a huge direct mail and pay-by-click marketing campaign to people in the Memphis market that we buy properties from. And I can tell you that we've interviewed them already afterwards. And after our virtual assistants have talked with them and we've gotten the deal closed, and we say, how did that help you? What did you think about this? And a couple of them are saying, oh, it was great. You know, I really liked what you did here. And a couple of them have said, I didn't really like that your virtual assistant had an accent. You know, or I didn't like that, you know, a couple of them didn't like that, you know, they thought he's in the Philippines, but they thought he was in India because of his accent. And I'm like, it's a totally different accent, but okay, you know. So and we changed his name from Fry to Brian because they didn't like Fry was his name. So like the little things like that you pick up by doing that type of analysis on each team member that you deal with. And I'm not the best at it. We're just testing it as we go, and I'm glad I hear it again, because it makes me want to go do it again and
That's
again,
right.
you know?
So does that basic concept make sense to you guys? So the purpose behind walking through your quote-unquote customer journey is that there are many layers to it. One is it's a consistency of branding, right? From the moment you say hi to your client, they already are forming and shaping who you're going to be to them. So how you say hi brands you from the beginning. Are you McDonald's saying hi? Are you Lamborghini saying hi? Right? All the way through to the end of how much you follow up with them. So it makes consistency across your brand, so you attract the right customer who will be satisfied with your product. Right? The other thing it does is it lets you walk through all your systems associated with your customers and associated with your marketing.
Yes.
So now you've walked through each and every system, and you've touched every system and made sure there's a system there, or is there a hole? And you need to put a system in place. Right? Also, it helps you financially, because you can look and value, does each one of these actually bring return into my company? So it's just a way to not only just create a successful marketing experience for attracting a customer, it's also a way to understand your brand. It's a way to understand your systems. It's a way to review your company. It's a way to make sure you're cohesive from beginning to end. So I'm going to second the thought of, if you haven't done it already, maybe you want to do it tonight before you leave this room. Anybody want to take on that challenge? Oh, come on. Nobody's going to sit here for 15 minutes and take on that challenge when we're done talking tonight. Yes,
Awesome.
There she is. That's my girl. Yes. Okay, I got one. Do I have a second? Yes. And I'll sit with you guys while we do it. You don't need my help, but if anybody wants my help, I'll sit with you. We'll talk about it.
I can tell you guys, when so I read a book called Traction, which reiterated everything that I should have been listening to the whole time when I'm getting coaching from O'Leary, you know, and realized after I read it the second time, oh wow, this is what he was actually talking about, you know, when you break down your business and say, okay, here's me up at the top right here, and how do I go through and break down your business into those categories? So, you know, in the real estate business, you're looking at, you know, okay, I have me, which I need to be the entrepreneur. I need to be the one that manages and sees the vision of the whole thing. And then I need to have an implementer underneath me that implements the ideas that I have, that isn't really doing all the work, but they're just managing the team that is implementing those ideas. Mm-hmm. And then, like Larry said, you have, you know, and Christina said, you have the marketing piece, you have the sales piece, you have the accounting piece, and you have the operations, which breaks down on a real estate side into renovations, into property management, into cash flow analysis, into, you know, the accounting function where you are actually going through and reviewing all of your investments to make sure they're cash flowing like you think they are, and then also going through and reviewing all your financials to say, just like what Christina was saying, when she goes through the financial statement with each person, every single expense, how can I become better at those expenses? How can I go through and say, I paid $300,000 a year in interest last year. How the heck do I cut that down? why do I have this warranty expense here? Why do I have, why do I have rehab overages of this amount? How do I break that down into more detail? And you strategically go through each piece of your balance sheet and say, how do I, on each flip you've done or each property you've rented, how do you strategically say, how do I get better? And that's where you take that step back and work on your business instead of inside of your business. And, I want to kind of bring it back to that just a little bit and understand from working on your business, what are some of the I guess, not just working on your business, but also habit forming. What are some of the strategic things you can be doing every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year to become better at running your business? What are the certain things you ask your clients to do to be able to strategically form these types of habits to become better? And I know we've talked about a ton of them, of course. But,
Well, before I talk about it, I just want to loop back really quick for 30 seconds and talk about the end-to-end revenue generating process, because some people, my partner actually devised this process. She has a book on it and stuff. And to me, it's like, oh, more structure? Do we have to? And so
You're an engineer.
I know, exactly. That's right. As soon as I got my degree, they put me into supervision because I could talk. But the reason why it's so important, especially for people who are resisting it, take the opportunity to work with Christina afterwards, is that, remember, looping back to where we started, right? 80% of companies are out of business in a few years because they don't see what takes them out. So an end-to-end revenue generating process reveals what you don't see. It actually reveals your blind spots. We had a lot of companies do this. Just as an example, one gentleman has a company, makes good cash. He sells exotic cars around the world, like 200, 500,000, $1 million Ferraris. He has that. He's a great sales guy. So he did this process, and he realized there's two guys who know a particular topic in his company, and nobody else knows that. Nobody else knows that in the industry. He had revealed a single point of failure in his company. And he said, man, if those two guys leave, I'm dead. And so immediately he looped back and had them write down another process, write down exactly what they know, and get it down on paper, because writing it makes it real, and he had that knowledge. So
That's awesome. I think that's probably one of the most important things. Think about your teams for a minute and who you have working with you. Is there anybody in your team right now that could be a single point of failure where if they went away, it'd be very difficult to replace them? Yes, you're like him right here. I still have that in my business. There are certain people that have great expertise, but at the same time, and it would hurt really bad. But if you can get them to write down that process, then at least you have a game plan to follow. And they may resist it because they think they might be replaced or something along those lines, which, you have to do it and say, it's not if that I want to replace you. What happens if you pass away or if you don't want to work with me anymore? I want to make sure that my business doesn't fail. And that communication, I think, is one of the most important things you can have. Because, we've had people that we had going in Indianapolis. We stopped working in that market, but that literally we had a main contractor just pass away on us. He died. And you're going, great. What the heck do I do now? And it sucks because you're like, great, I'm going to go fly to Indianapolis, go to the funeral, deal with that. And you're emotional already about it because you know the guy and he's a good person and stuff. And then you're in your head, you're sitting there going, well, I'm going to stop doing business here because it's going to take me forever to find another contractor that actually isn't going to steal from me, that actually knows how to manage this entire thing. So it's a big task to do something like that. And so you want to have these backups in place and understand everything that they're doing.
Yeah,
So.
and you know what? You don't have to do all the writing, because all the if you have a team with you, 3 or 4 people or a dozen or whatever, they have it. So just reverse the power or privilege to participate for them in writing down exactly what you do. And they get to say, oh, I get to actually write this down and let them know this is not about replacing you. This is about you getting better at what you do. And I remember I was a consultant at Raytheon, and so there's this one 60-year-old woman who knew this financial piece, and nobody else knew this in a billion-dollar company. The CEO of that division said, you got to get it out of her head and stuff like. So I sat with her and that stuff. So we need to write down exactly what you do, and I'll just sit here and go with you to lunch. I'll buy you lunch, like all this thing. And she goes to me and says, well, are you writing it down just in case I get hit by a bus? I said, no, it's not like that. It's like, say you win the lotto and you go to Paris like that, or I get hit by a bus in Paris.
Doesn't have to be negative, yeah.
And so just frame it in a way that's actually, the people who are helping you get to give into the process, because they're really helping you, make a dime. And so there's a lot of other benefits, but I don't want to dwell on this too long. So she's going to talk about habits.
Oh, yeah,
and then
please.
I'll be
Perfect.
Okay. I don't know if this is where I'm going to let O'Leary fill in. So what are some basic things I tell my clients to do? First thing is set up preset meeting times with your teammates or with your vendors. Don't let them call you willy-nilly, right? We spend 50% of our day or more as entrepreneurs just answering the emails and answering the phone calls to direct the team. At least I do. Anybody else? Am I the only one? Okay, I'm just checking. Maybe I'm, Okay, look, good. I got a couple of hands up and a couple of head nods. But you can find that if you set a preset time to work with that team, every morning 9 a.m., you get my time. You get me for an hour. But I'm going to call you at 3 o'clock. And then when you call at 3 o'clock, you go, great, I'm looking forward to hearing a lot more about that at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Right? You train them into that meeting time. You train them into focusing their accountability and their responsibility into that meeting time. And then you ask them all the questions you need to ask them so that they're 100% accountable to everything that you feel like they should be doing. And so they're prepared at 9 a.m. to have that meeting with you. And they're excited to tell you what their wins are, and you're going to acknowledge them for those wins. And you can say, you're an important contributor to my company, and I so appreciate how you did this. And by the way, did you finish X, Y, and Z? Right? So you set meeting time. It gives you more control over your capacity to work on your business instead of be in the business and answer their questions. So that's just one habit. Another habit is a monthly review on your P&L. How many people do a monthly review on their income and expenses every single month? Okay. So just a suggestion for those of you who didn't just raise your hand, maybe you are doing it and you chose not to raise your hand. I strongly encourage that. The reason being is we have a feeling in our gut about how our business is doing, and we're often right. Our gut often is absolutely correct. Our business is doing well, it's not doing well, it's this way, it sucks, it's great, but we don't have the information to inform us why we've noticed the move. So if you sit down and you look at the information of noticing the move, you also have the opportunity to cultivate what the moves are going to be. Oh, my business made $10,000 last month. Great. Now how many homes do I need to flip to make 15 in 6 months? Because I know I made 10,000 on 10 homes. If I do 15 homes, I might make 15,000, right, net. Which is, I'm using numbers that aren't correct to the industry, but.
Make it a little more exciting, like 100
Easy
and
math.
200.
Okay, I apologize.
It's not 1925 anymore.
I made $150,000 last month, and I want to make $200,000 in 6
There you
months.
go.
How does
There you
that
go.
sound? Is
That's
that good?
better. Yeah.
Okay, much better. Okay, good. I apologize. It's my problem. I work with entrepreneurs and sole proprietors. What can I say?
And I would even go one step further and say, analyze your financials every couple weeks and have your budget in front of your face at all times, because being a CPA, I see doctors and attorneys that are honestly some of the worst at their financial situation because they make so much money. It's when I was doing their taxes previously, it's like the mindset of that. Most of them are in debt because they paid so much for school. It's like really difficult for them to get through. And so you realize very, very quickly how important it is to keep track and constantly keep that budgeting in your head, at all times for your business and every aspect of it. So.
Another story that's different from that is I had this client who called me in tears on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock and said, I need to close my business. Oh my God, I am so horrible at running my business. I can't manage it anymore. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk her off the cliff edge, right? Because she's going to close her business. What happened was that she had had a conversation with one of her business partners who didn't want to be in the business anymore. So what I could say to her, because we've been reviewing her P&L, was your business brings in $500,000 a year in gross. And you're telling me, and you bring home $150,000 to $200,000 a year to your family running this business. And you're telling me you're not running a successful business? I'm suggesting that maybe that's okay. I'm thinking that maybe you're running a successful business that's supporting your family. Maybe you don't want to close it this afternoon, right? And that's just from running a P&L. You know, that's just from knowing what her P&L says. So not only does it give you a clear accountability to your company, allow you to project your growth, have a better understanding of how to move your company forward, but it also lets you feel successful. It lets you know where you're starting, and it lets you know you moved your company. So the numbers really help you, both on the accountability and on the feeling of success. Okay, David really wants to say something.
Well, you guys are on success is true, it's success, but also stops you from, you know, something may have gone wrong and you didn't know it because you don't have the numbers, and that saves you actually for more money than less than loss.
That's true too.
I know people who got their P&L, they didn't realize they're about to lose 20 grand on a deal, you know, on a deal. And like, you know, if they didn't change something, if they didn't change certain things in it, if
Okay.
they didn't do it, they would have lost.
Okay, I got to talk to this directly. So how many of you are flippers or wholesalers in the business? Okay. I'm going to say this specifically to the real estate. My husband, who worked at Lockheed, right? We all know Lockheed, right? He worked on, he's one of those people that flew into that place you're not allowed to talk about and then would fly out and he couldn't talk about it anymore. Right? So they worked on really large projects with really big budgets. And even he said it should fit on the back of an envelope. If it doesn't fit on the back of an envelope, the project's too complicated. Okay? But I have a suggestion for you. How many times have you guys said, I'm going to make $30,000 on this project, and you made 10? How many times have you said, this is amazing, we're going to make 30% return on our money, we're so frickin' excited, and then when you analyzed it, you made 7? Okay? That's because you got excited in the head, and you ran it on the back of an envelope, but you didn't take the time to trust running it on the Excel spreadsheet. You didn't make it real, to borrow from a Larry.
And write it down.
You didn't write it down. You got excited about the idea in your head, but you let the idea run you instead of the reality run you. So always write, so just straight suggestion, always write down the deal and what you are going to make from it, not what the deal's going to make, because you got to share that. How many of you guys do joint ventures and you got to share that deal? I get 50%, right? The deal's going to make 30%. What am I going to make? I'm going to make 15. After I pay my crew, what am I going to make? 5. Or after I pay my assistant and my overhead, what am I going to make? 7. So I really encourage you to trust the numbers, especially if you're in the real estate industry. Okay.
Now, I'm just going to
Fill in.
reinforce some great stuff that Christina said. First of all, I didn't see too many hands go up when you said the P&L. How many actually did
Yeah,
that?
I didn't.
And so,
That's why I'm like,
yeah.
No, being
I
kind
won't-
on him, Matthew. Once a month is asking a lot. Come on,
Yeah.
give them a
So
chance.
I want to admonish anybody here, because when I got my, my engineering degree, I go, what's a P&L,
What's a
man?
P&L?
Yeah,
Why would I look at
I could
my
teach factor
P&L?
calculus, what's a P&L? So it's very important to look at that, and the reason why is because it reveals to you the physical universe, what's happening in the physical universe. And you can't change what you're not aware of. You can't change your blind spot, right? You can't change what you're not aware of. And, what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets changed.
Nice.
And so
Nice.
you have to have that in mind. And if you want to know why you only got 7% when, you did it on the envelope in the restaurant and it said I'd get 30%, you're bleeding money somewhere. And your P&L will show you that. Additionally, as a leader, is that every CEO that's worth their salt, up in Fortune 500, can look in the P&L and immediately point, say, what's happening here? What's happening here? Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be a millionaire, a multimillionaire, and I'm assuming since you're not watching The Simpsons rerun tonight, you're here, I assume you want to be multimillionaires, you need to become excellent money managers. even if you just have a little tiny budget. And when you start, that's all you have, and then all of a sudden the zeros start adding to the end. You need to be an excellent money manager, having your P&L, knowing exactly what's happening there, plus your balance sheet and cash flow. I typically have, once a month, I do a dashboard. I get there's no one software. I put everything in there because I come from the .com area. I had a .com company. And you need to know how many days, how many months in bank you have before you go broke. How many months in bank, right? Before you go broke. And so typically a good practice to have at least 3 months in bank in cash because it fluctuates and stuff. So having said that, flipping onto a habit. So a habit of having a P&L. You got to actually have that. You often hear this saying that practice creates perfection. Practice does not create perfect. Practice creates a habit. So one of the things you want to look at is what practices are you taking right now, just looking at your physical universe, your current reality, that are reinforcing habits that work and habits that don't work as well as you want. Maybe you want to get rid of them. And a good practical way is to actually do a double up, work on your thinking time, and get something practical is for the week, maybe starting on Monday or maybe tomorrow, for a whole week, write down how you spend your time. Just write down, okay, I took 15 minutes for coffee. I spent 3 hours on email. You write down every day and you write down what you do. And then at the end of the week, when you do your next 1 hour of thinking time, and I highly recommend 4 hours for every business owner. And so look at how you spend your time. And you always want to move toward your highest, best use of time. And so to do that, you want to delegate, which I talked about that. You want to definitely eliminate, stuff that you don't like doing that's not adding to the bottom line, or just eliminate it, off the bat, how you're wasting time. You want to automate. And then fourth, you want to replicate. And that's what leadership comes in. So replicate is you're great at what you do. What if there was 2 of you or 3? Well, maybe those people work in your company where you could teach them on your lead it time. Teach them what you do great, so a piece of it, and it keeps adding on over time so that you can actually replicate your expertise by others. How many people would like to learn what you know already? Yeah, I'll come in here and learn about it. Yeah, so you're shaking your head. And so you can actually replicate. Hey, why don't you come in here and I'll just pay you this and I'll show you what you do, and then you can go out and do a deal. And so think about those four different practices, create a habit. So always looking at moving toward your highest, best use of time. And so to do that, you need to use those 4 exercises. That's a good habit. Question?
Yeah, so my question is actually for you, Matt, and taking a step back to working on the business. So you mentioned you've kind of gone through this, you've thought about this stuff before, you've been working at your business for a really long time. Maybe as a retrospective publicly, what do you think held you back from taking the time to work on your business more than 2 hours, knowing how valuable it is? Because I have a lot of reasons why I'm not doing it. Every time I think about it, I'm like, God, I need to hire somebody, I need to spend the money, I need to do that. But from your experience, would you mind kind of talking to that?
Like he just whispered to me, stubbornness, and my own emotions, Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You want to be right, or you want to be wealthy?
Yeah.
Right.
Your choice.
Yeah.
True. And I'd have to say, to be honest, it comes down to me not realizing that I needed to be working on my business. I thought I was working on my business by spinning that wheel, by constantly just doing the things that came up immediately, like all these emails. I could spend 3 hours a day on emails, instead, but and I'm not getting my other tasks done that are most important to get done, even though that initial email that comes in immediately, you feel like it's really important to go get it right there because
you have this immediate need to fulfill that and get it off your plate, right? Because it's super fast to get it done. But that is not the most important thing in your business to do. Working on your business is, and I found that scheduling your time, which is something Larry taught me to do, scheduling your important tasks is probably one of the most important things you can do. Scheduling the time to work on your business, scheduling your time to have that important phone call that you don't want to have, or like strategically plan out one little piece of your business that you want to get done that week, and doing it 1 week at a time. One thing that I learned from both of these guys up here is to talk about, or to really strategically take a look and say, okay, this week, these are the accomplishments that I want to accomplish right now to move me forward. When, spending that money that you don't have, that you want to spend, that you need to spend to get there, it isn't necessarily, insurmountable to get there. Maybe you need to think more about how you're going to get the money to do it, and partner with somebody that has it, or, just to give you an example of that. And I think myself going through this, I've had that issue, and I felt like the only way for me to get the things done that I think need to get done versus me just focusing on that immediate thing, like the email, for example, is to schedule those items and pretend like it's a phone call meeting that I have to be at, and have that, discussion with myself instead. I think those types of things have been gigantic for me to be able to move myself forward slowly over time to get to those goals, because it's not going to happen like that. It'll happen a lot faster than you really think it happens when you do something consistently and create a habit for a week. One other thing that I think was really huge that I learned was to be a better leader. One thing that O'Leary hammered in my head over and over and over again was either, of course, now I'm not going to say the acronym right, of course. It's you're either training people, or you're delegating, training, or firing. If they're not, I'm saying it wrong. I'm totally saying it wrong. He didn't hammer it that well. So, but basically, it's
I think the 4 T's.
Yeah, the 4 T's. That's what it is. So. Okay. I forgot the acronym, but it's basically, I needed to learn how to train people and consistently be training. So a couple of things that I've set up just recently as well is every single month, I make sure that I have a lunch with every one of my team members. Every single month, I have a training session set up to teach my team members something about real estate that I think I could delegate off my plate at some point in the future. I try to have a every 2-week traction meeting where I go over, okay, every person has their tasks that they need to, it's not really tasks, it's like to move our company forward with their segment of the business. They have these items they need to achieve within the next couple weeks. And by setting a deadline of that couple weeks to get there, it's amazing how many times it gets done the day before the deadline happens. And it's like the weekly training and then coaching that I had, with O'Leary. I would be waiting until the night before to get everything I needed to get done so that he doesn't yell at me. And he wouldn't really yell at me, but he'd be like, why didn't you get that done? When did I ever yell at you? Well, yeah, he didn't yell at me, but, I felt like it was yelling because I felt bad that I didn't get it done the way I told him I should have done, So, but it's like that. It's setting those deadlines for yourself to make and having someone there to hold you accountable. And I don't care if it's not a coach. I don't care if it's somebody else that you can go to and say, I want to sit down with you once a week, and you want you to be holding me accountable. Otherwise, you're going to make me do push-ups, or I'm going to owe you money, or whatever it is. Make a consequence for you not getting it done. My consequence was having to go to O'Leary and say, I didn't get it done. Damn it. Like I wanted to get that done really badly, and I didn't do it. I felt like I let him down. If I didn't, even though I didn't, because he knows everybody goes through this process, but my mentality was like, I'm letting him down by not doing what I said I was going to do. I told him I was going to do this, but he would also give me homework and say, okay, look, one of the questions were, what was my accomplishments this week? What was my challenges this week that I went over? And having a reflection of the previous week about how I actually accomplish what I thought I was going to accomplish, and what things am I going to accomplish for the next week, and holding myself accountable on those items. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to get yourself to do when you're so involved in spinning that wheel constantly and getting yourself out going, great, now I have 500 emails to answer because I ignored them for 2 days, you know what I mean? So, and it's not an easy thing, but at the same, to get yourself out of that bad habit, you know? So I always commend people for having the, I guess, the strength to hire someone else to be in their inbox the whole time, because that seems like the scariest thing in the world. But if you look at it, that would save you probably the most amount of time getting through your emails, right? So, because that takes so much work.
So when are you gonna do that?
So when, oh man, you're gonna make me spend 15 minutes in detention after this, huh? And write down when I'm gonna do it.
Well,
So,
you know,
Take it.
I just want to clarify for you, Matt, that you
As soon as I
didn't
can afford it.
you didn't let me down.
Well-
or feel that, you know, I was just a living mirror for how you let yourself down.
right.
Because when you think about it, there's this is very important, because you as a leader are sacrificing for something you never had. Everything that you want is actually outside your comfort zone. So I remember I talked about the triangle, right? Mindset, action, planning, and action. So looking at the mindset is that the greatest power happens when you're a community. This is a community where you get to be with other people and they ask you questions that maybe you forgot to ask yourself over time, or that like isn't obvious to you. You know, like, you know, because I'm a coach, I have other coaches in my life, because like you, I can't see the tip of my nose. So it's important to have other people, whether it's a mastermind, a group, someone you could brainstorm with, you know, during your lead it time, to actually ask you questions about what you automatically do. It's you know, and this is not like, you know, child therapy or anything, but like we learn how to do things quite well when we survived our, you know, being young. And it's like how many people seen the movie The Matrix real long time ago? Remember the second movie, The Merovingians? You know, those pesky, nefarious programs, they don't work anymore, they just keep on going. And so we learn how to do things well, and it sort of keeps on going in the back of our brain. And you need to interrupt your automatic thinking, your limiting thinking, to get you to the next level. Otherwise, like Matt said, you'll just keep on going, because you'll get what you're going to get. So you could be, you know, not just you, but everybody. When I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself too, right? So, you know, you could be right, because I love being right, or you could be wealthy. You know, and so you get to interrupt your limiting conversations. So think about, for each one of you, like, you know, what's wanted and needed to take it to the next level, and what am I resisting? What you resist persists. So what am I resisting? And get along with somebody and says, hey, man, I'm struggling here, I'm resisting. Get with your fellow resistors and says, oh, I don't want to make that call, or just, you know, I really don't think I'm that kind of leader, you know, and break through that. Because when you break through it, there's more of you for other people, to create value for other people.
It's interesting too, because when you have that temporary defeat, see, I'm changing my language now, instead of saying failure, it's temporary defeat. When you have that temporary defeat, and you move past it, that's when you have the mental power and the confidence to pretty much do anything. That's when you really perform well after that. If you pick yourself up and dust yourself off and move forward, you really get through those limiting conversations with yourself, because everyone has them. Everybody thinks, you know, I sit there, for example, I'm looking at like a 500-unit apartment building. It's scary as hell to me, because it's a giant building and it's fully vacant and needs 100% renovation. That'd probably be the biggest project that I've ever had to deal with, right?
In Memphis?
In Memphis. Scares the crap out of me, because I'm sitting there going, well, how do I get, you know, that many contractors to do this? I can't take away from my other business. They have to be all new contractors. And am I really going to go hire a builder or something that's unproven to me to deal with a giant project like that? What if they mess up or they screw me just like all these other contractors did in the past? You know, these are the things that go through my head, but it's a matter of structure and putting the right things in place to get that to happen. And so, you know, one of the things that I had written down as one of the questions, and Christina, I'll bring this to you on this point, just because I think it relates to real estate, you know. But go ahead. So you want to?
No.
Okay.
No,
So
we're
one of
good.
the things that I think is important to learn how to do is how to manage and train and be a leader for your team, and I want to understand from a real estate perspective, what are some of the things that you do to manage your real estate team members on a consistent weekly, daily, monthly basis to get them to perform? I know you had some great comments on property management in the past, and
Yeah.
that's where my mind was going, but it also goes to contractors. How do you hold them accountable, and how do you get them to perform the way you want them to perform?
So he's spoon feeding me because he knows I have a particular system called managing the managers. And
I
I'll
love
talk
it.
to that system for a minute, and then we'll expand on the system, right? Because real estate's only one of our businesses here. So when I talk about managing the managers, I call it having the iron fist and the velvet glove. I don't yell at people. I really don't. I'm way too kind-hearted. I'm way too soft to yell at people, truth be told. And I don't like doing it. I really don't. So I don't. But I do ask. So every Monday morning, I send an email to my management company. Right? So this is specific to managers. Every Monday morning, I send an email to my management company. It has 3 things in it. It has the thank you for doing blah, blah, blah. And then it has the what of our current projects that we're working on, how are they doing? And I have the projects listed. And then it has what new projects or new questions do I have? And it's pretty easy. I just rotate the email. Every Monday, I move the what has been finished into the thank you, and I move the new question into what's in progress. So it's not hard, right? This is not brain surgery. And it keeps a very clear list between me and my management company on what we're doing. Right? So, and if they haven't contacted me back by Wednesday, by Thursday morning, by Wednesday night I'm sending an email, and I don't have an email by Thursday morning, I'm on a phone. And I'm not being mean, and I'm not being hard. I'm just going, I was just wondering, did you happen to see my email? I have a question about blah, blah, blah. So now they need to deal with me. And they get used to that Monday morning I have an email, and if they don't reply by Thursday, I'm going to be calling them. Right? I'm not being mean. I'm asking them to be accountable. Right? And I talked about this system one time in a room where there was 2 property management people in the room. And I said, do you guys have anybody who does this? And they go, no, we don't.
They're like, I'm going to hate you.
They're going to hate me as a client, right? So if you just take that same concept called, what's my job as a leader? My job as a leader doesn't require me to yell, but it does require me to hold people accountable. So I'm going to use a marriage example because I'm married, and I learned in my I've only been married once. I've been married for 10 years now. And about 18 months to year 2, I realized that if I go wah, 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 wah at my husband, nothing happens. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Right? The husbands in the room know what wah,
no
wah,
idea.
wah,
Totally
wah,
no
wah
idea.
is, right?
No idea. I don't know what
Honey,
you're
would you
talking about at all.
please? Honey, it would be, why don't you do this? I've asked you so many times, honey. Come, don't you care about me? Oh my, and I take it to this, wah, right? Okay, that's called nagging. And then I learned, if I say to my husband, honey, if you don't get this done by Friday, I'm going to hire somebody to get it done on Saturday morning. They're showing up at 9 o'clock, right? And it's like, oh, well, let me get it done. Or, gee, honey, if you don't move your car by this time, I know you love working on that car. It'd be a real shame for it to disappear. I'm going to ask them to come pick it up and move it out of the driveway. So I'm not taking it from him. I'm not violating our relationship agreements. But I am telling him that the project's going to move forward, with or without him. Right? So I'm just suggesting. See, now nobody wants to be married to me, and everyone's going to go, how do you put up with her, right?
This is on Facebook live stream. I don't know what she's talking about. Sorry.
Hi, honey. So what I've learned is that it's the same way. Whether you're dealing with a contractor or whether you're dealing with your management team, right? It's like, did you clean up the building the way I asked you to? Well, yes, I did. Really, I sent somebody by the other day, just a friend of mine who happens to be local, and they noticed that these particular things hadn't been done yet. Would you be willing to take care of those things? I'm not being mean, and I'm not yelling, but I'm holding them accountable. And I'm not wah, 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 wah. I know what my timelines are. I know what level of commitment I'm looking for from them. And so I simply figure out how do I have to intervene to help them understand that I do know what's happening. So same with your contractors. I'm a great believer, and I know the contractors in this room don't shoot me. I'm a great believer in the, performance bonus. And if you're not going to get done, then there is a daily fee. And the way I negotiate, oh, it's going to be a 3-month project. Great. Do you think a whole nother month would work for you? If you feel like, or is it 2 months? Would 2 months be sufficient? What do you need to have that out there, right? And, by the way, at 2 weeks, you start getting paid extra. Because it's not about me arguing with them, it's about, at some point, I need them to know that there's an end to the project. And I withhold the last payment until the final checklist is done. So I have accountability built into my system. So I'm not wonking at them or being angry.
So the best structure you're saying is to look at your entire system and say, what points for each person that you're dealing with
Is the accountability
can you put
point.
an accountability structure inside those systems?
So I'll do delegation. So when you delegate a project, you assume that you're going to have to do 2 follow-ups. So I delegate a project inside of my business. Maybe it's to a vendor, maybe it's to an employee, and I say it's due by, that's January 1st, it's due by February 1st. I then back it up a week because I assume they're probably not going to actually finish it by the deadline I give them. And then I have 2 check-in times on my calendar for me to check in with them. And I say, this is the project, here's how it serves the company. Here's the vision for the project, right? And I say, do you think you can do it by this timeline? And I get their commitment to it. They've committed to the date. They have an opportunity to negotiate the date. They've committed to the date. And then I say, is there anything that you need from me to get this done? How can I help you get this done? And what do you need from me? And that way they know I've offered to them that opportunity, and I ask that same question the next time I do my check-in with them.
You guys can see that a lot of this management of these contractors and the different team members, which are very hard to get them trained the way you want them to be, because as she pointed out in the last discussion or the last comment, that there was a couple property managers in the room specifically, they don't have any clients to do these types of things. And so they need to be trained the right way that you want things managed. But in order for that to happen, you also need to show them the value that you're going to bring to the table for them and how much more work they're going to get and what to expect that if they do it the right way, then they're going to be rewarded in specific ways. But it really comes down to that proper communication up front. If you don't set the expectation up front on a contractor that there's penalties but also a bonus involved, and why? Because you have to pay interest for those delays, they're going to sit there and say, I'm not signing that contract. There's penalties involved. And every single contractor you deal with will have that problem unless you show them, this is how much interest I'm paying, this is how much it costs me every day that you're behind. And so I sit there and go, look, it's going to take an extra, you tell me it's going to be done by this date, I'm going to give you an extra 2 weeks. After that, then there's going to be a penalty. Are you okay with that? And you set that expectation up front and have that proper communication. So O'Leary, on running your business, what are some of the key techniques that you can do and the habits you can have to properly train your employees and subcontractors and properly put the right systems in place to give them the right support to be able to perform well for you and succeed?
Okay, I can answer that in an hour.
Yeah, you have 1 minute.
I want to add to, from a different perspective, what was
Okay.
great stuff that was said here about with the contractors. And the whole idea is that we operate in a system of promises. So you're inviting your contractors, the people who work with you, into a promise, or as Matt was saying, an expectation, and a process, an agreement point along that way. And you're actually teaching other people how to treat you. What happens when there's breakdown is that there's a breakdown in expectations, and specifically unspoken expectations. Like, you say, hey, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock in the movies, whatever, like that. And there's an assumption your friend will keep their promise, and it's like 5:15. It's like, what the heck?
It's California. Everybody's here like half an hour later. They don't show up, right?
And so when money's involved, so you get to educate, and most people have not really lived in the rigor of structure to notice that, okay, at this time we have to hit the mark, at this time we have to hit the mark. Like, so you're educating your contractors, the people you work with, in how not only to treat you, but you're teaching them, remember, replicate. talk about replicating yourself, teaching them how to live in excellence. And so, and when those points are broken, when promises are broken, and guess what? Human beings break promises. That's a guarantee. And so people are not very skilled in like, okay, if a promise is broken, how do I get back into that, back into the promise? You got to clear that out, and then you got to make a new promise in there. You get to go again. What was the question, Matt? I completely forgot that.
No problem. It's what are the key things you can do consistently to keep your team engaged, to be an effective leader, train them properly, and set them up for success?
Okay, this goes to something I wrote in my MBA about the 8 anchors of change. One of them is participation. People tend to participate in a life that's worth living. And so how do you know what will have, the people that work for you, the vendors that work for you, how would you know what will get them excited? You ask them, right? The resources are right there. You ask them like that. So, okay, so, and I'll use the example. So what incentive would work with you best? I'm talking to like a vendor, it's a contract. What incentive would work with you best so that I can give you a bonus and you'll finish on time, which of course will allow you to go to your next job. You actually make double the money because you can start a next job. Just ask them. You put that in the contract because they already know what will jazz them up, right? Money is not always the thing. There's, you know, when you look at, I'm working with a corporation right now in the Midwest in Michigan. I get to go there in March. I'm going to freeze my ass off.
In March.
Yeah.
It's
But
60 degrees there right now. It's warm.
really? Really? Oh, that's good. I better go now. So this is the whole thing that people don't ask, what do you want? You know, what would make you work? What would really drive your work? Remember the earthquake we had? It was a Northridge earthquake. Some of you are young. But the 10 collapsed, the freeway, one of the most busiest freeways in the country. And they said, oh my, we got to get this up. We got to get this up in a few weeks, right? It's like, took a whole year to build. How are they going to get it up? They incentivized the people there. They found out exactly what money would drive you and get you excited. These guys were working 24/7, and I think like each one of the guys won like $20,000 or $30,000 in their pocket because they finished a couple of weeks ahead of time. But someone actually asked, what is it you need? What do you want? What do you want to have happen here? And so a good practice is around the whole replicate yourself, your skill to move your company forward, is have these open conversations with these people so that you find out what get people excited and participate and contribute so that they stay in the promise.
So one of the things in the delegation process I talked about was you tell them what the project is, but you also tell them how it helps the company, right? So in that process, why would you tell them how it helps the company? It's because you can ask them too. Because it helps them too, but you can ask them to as well. Like, if I belong to a company, like I was a teacher, okay? I worked for many years and I was a teacher. And I showed up for teaching at 8:05 almost every morning. My class started at 8 a.m. Am I having a problem? My students are there before I am. I'm thinking maybe I should be more incentivized to show up on time. When I asked myself, why am I not showing up on time, it was because nobody noticed I was late. Nobody cared. The teacher walked in, I was an enrichment teacher, the teachers walked in, they were always late at 8:05, I was always walking in at 8:05, nobody cared if I was there at 8 a.m., right? I was incentivized not by the fact that I was being paid, I was incentivized because I was there to help people. And if there weren't people in the room, I wasn't excited about being in the room. I'm just that silly, that's just the way I work. So literally, when you talk about how it helps, when you delegate a project, and you talk about how it helps the company, you can also talk about you're enlivening them on their vision. If they care about helping people, you can talk about how it helps people. You can talk about how it helps the client. You can talk about how it helps the company get better. If they care about the bottom line, you can talk about money. But you enliven them. When you're delegating a project, you just don't go, here, you're a worker, please do what I tell you to do. Right? You're saying, here, you know what, this pen is going to make a difference in the people that you help. By it having the brand on it and it's showing that we change lives, it's going to encourage people to ask questions about our company. So we want to order 1,000 of these, and I think it'll make a difference in somebody's life. would you please be willing to go do that? And can you do that by Thursday afternoon? Because Saturday is when I want to hand them out. I'm going to give them for free to 100 people. Now, hopefully, I've just enlivened him to the purpose of the assignment and given him, hopefully, a greater sense of leadership over the assignment. So, just a nuance. I thought you were going to
No.
touch on that.
No, it's a great thing. I think it's very, since we're talking about books, how many people read the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? It's a great book, you know. All coaches, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And they talk about a mythical company where this whole team is in dysfunction. And they want results, they want revenue, but they drill it all the way down to the bottom part of the pyramid, which is trust. When people trust you, when they're like, you got my back, and you're gonna pay on time, they trust you, they go up to the next level, which is to ask, fierce questions about like what's happening. You're transparent, you're open. That's it. That's 9:31.
Cool.
So, yeah, okay, so that'd be a good book. Five Dysfunction of Team, I got it. You're gonna get
Yeah,
back
no,
to
it was like
Pasadena at
definitely.
midnight.
No, it was
Thank you guys very much for coming today. I hope you guys learned something for the event tonight. If you guys want to ask them questions, they're here afterwards. If you need team member help or any resources, please feel free to reach out. We also have a new site up. If you go to ocgproperties.com/en/networking, EN stands for English, /networking, then you guys can put your information in, and if you have a resource that you have available for other people, you can put that in there, or if you're looking for a resource for other people, you can put that in there, and we will try to match you up with the right people or the right team members that can help you out in those areas. We also have next month's event on flipping in the El Segundo area, next month's event here on investing at out-of-state real estate, and then Saturday I'm teaching a brunch and learn, comes with free breakfast, on how to optimize your real estate portfolio for cash flow. So thank you guys very much for coming. We really appreciate it, and we'll have the recording available for you.